Hello and welcome to the Bhagavatam. My name is Rohit, and we're going to be talking about a topic that is very, very dear to my heart. What we're going to speak about today is the many forms of God. So I know that there's a lot of people out there with a lot of different views, and that's why this is such an interesting topic. Have you ever wondered what God looks like? Most religions want you to believe in God, to worship God, to love God, and devote your life to God. But they cannot answer this simple question: what does God look like? What does he do? Where does he live? Is God an old man in the clouds, a man nailed to a cross, or a white light somewhere in the cosmos? Some people say that God has a form, while others say he's formless. Some say he doesn't exist. But interestingly, the deniers, the naysayers, seem to be almost as fanatical about their beliefs as the ones who believe in God. I prefer to start contemplating the idea of God by considering a possibility. Let's think about this. Chaos happens by itself. If we leave our home for a long time, it will be a mess by the time we return. On the other hand, to bring order to our home, to decorate it, to make a meal, or buy groceries, that takes effort. It doesn't happen by itself. My iPhone didn't create itself. A big bang doesn't create the computer I'm using. It took hundreds of engineers, decades to perfect it. Let's say something did create this world, something far more intelligent than us, because we're barely able to understand how it all works. Millions of scientists are still trying to figure it out, but they're not able to create the world. They might create machines and technologies, but they're unable to create organic life such as that which is found in a blade of grass, an ant, a worm, a bird, an animal, or a human. They might clone or copy. They might modify or genetically engineer, but they cannot create life. So maybe something created all of this because it couldn't have happened by itself. Nothing comes from nothing. Nothing comes from chance. Nothing comes from chaos or big bangs. It takes a deliberate effort, a conscious effort. It takes someone of very high, incredible intelligence to put together something that is very sophisticated. So it takes intelligence to create this universe and everything we see around us. Could this intelligent thing be a field of energy? Yeah, that's what a lot of people say and believe, consciousness. Why not? If it was, then what's directing that consciousness? What's guiding it? After all, if there's electric energy, we guide it through wires to get to people's homes. If there is light energy, we put it into a light bulb and we direct where it's going to go. Could there be a person behind this energy? You say, no, it's too big, it's too vast. How can it be a person? Why not? After all, we can take the vastness of the internet and bring it onto our phones, our computers. Why can't that which is the cause of everything manifest itself as a being? And if it is a being, then what kind of being? Does God have to be an old person just because he's been around for a long time? Or could God be eternally youthful, beautiful, male or female? It doesn't have to necessarily be male. Does God have to live in the clouds or be a light in the universe? Or can God have multiple dimensions in which he lives in various forms? I'm using the term he loosely here. Can God come to this world from time to time in various avatars to let us know who he is and how to reconnect and how to come back home? The Vedas tell us that the source of the universe is a divine energy and a divine being. At times, this being comes to this world as a sage, a king, and at times even a fish, a tortoise, a lion, or a human. After all, God can be anything God wants to be. And this is where we all tend to get stuck. We have a hard time allowing God to be whatever God is. But what if God enjoys taking various forms and having exciting pastimes to delight or protect his and her loved ones, and at times to preserve the species or humanity? If only we stopped limiting God by thinking that our version is the only possibility for God. If only we stopped trying to control God and alienate those with a different idea of who God might be. Perhaps there would be more peace and happiness in the world. All right. So if we start with that assumption, that God can have many forms, then the Vedic idea of God starts to make sense. The Vedas tell us that Vishnu, or the Supreme Being, incarnated 25 times in many different forms. And this is in recent time, in the last millennia, so to speak. Some were sages, some kings, some from various species, such as a fish called Matsya, a tortoise called Kurma, a half lion, half man, Narsingha, a dwarf, Vamana, and then Ram, the ideal ruler, and Krishna, the supreme beloved of all. The Vedas say that there are 8,400,000 species, and that one must go through all of them before one gets a human birth. If one then fails to utilize human life for spiritual growth, then one goes back into those animal, insect, bird species. So now, this whole conversation, we're on the 8th canto right now, and that is, we've come a long way. We've been doing this now for over a year. This whole conversation is happening between the great sage Shukadev and the king Parikshit. Parikshit is about to die in 7 days. And he's got a lot of questions before he dies. He wants to understand the very nature of existence, the nature of God, who he is, why is he here, what is life, all of these things that some of us also wonder about. So now he's going deeper. He's highly intelligent, so he's asking very deep and profound questions. He says, when God takes birth, comes in various species, is he like an ordinary mortal under the laws of karma? Like, we have gone through various species and then come to the human form. Does God also have to go through these laws of karma? And the sage Shukadev says, no, not really. For the sake of protecting the devotees, the demigods, devas, the Brahmins, the cows, the Vedas, Dharma, the principles of religion, the principles of righteousness, and to fulfill the purpose of life, the Supreme Being Vishnu incarnates in various avatars. Then he makes a wonderful comparison. He says, just like air passing through different environments takes on their odor, Vishnu incarnates as human and at times as an animal or another species, but at all times he is transcendental, unaffected by the modes of nature or the form he is in. Think about it. We are so deeply affected by the form we are in. If you're, for example, born as a dog, you're completely controlled by that dog body. There is a soul in that dog, just like there is a soul in you and me. There is a soul in that dog. At times, that soul may have been a human, but now he's in a dog body. When he's in a dog body, or a cat body, or a horse body, or whatever insect body, his consciousness is limited by that body. And therefore he thinks as a dog or a cat or a cockroach. And he thinks only of what that species is inclined to do. For example, hunting for food, trying to protect himself, trying to, just so many different things that these different creatures do. But they're not able to think the way a human does. In the human form of life, we're able to do something that is remarkable. We are able to think beyond the limitations of this form. We're able to imagine things. We're able to consider possibilities. We're able to not only understand things, but also speculate and perceive beyond the realms of our senses and our mind even. We're able to tap into energies and forms and experiences through, for example, meditation or various other forms of opening up our consciousness, where we're able to tap into higher realms and we're able to understand things that are not typical for most humans. We have the capabilities. And the problem with our modern day society is that it doesn't show us how to tap into that. It only teaches us how to make extraordinary machines, but not extraordinary humans. And that's the need of the hour. Because as our machine technology is developing and rising, our human nature, the goodness of our human nature is going downhill. We're becoming more and more perverted in many ways because there is no focus on developing the human. And therefore, there is need for reviving the knowledge of the Vedas, because there you find a civilization, a culture that focused on developing our innate abilities, on awakening the soul, on giving us capabilities that normal human beings cannot have. But if we were to tap into all three aspects of ourself, body, mind, and spirit, we're able to be far more than we are able to be at this time. And this is shown in the Vedas again and again and again. Great sages that are talked about there and their achievements and their abilities. So Vishnu, the Supreme Being, when he incarnates in any species, is not affected by that body, unlike us. He is transcendental to that. He is still Vishnu. That form is just a dress. We too can be that way. We too can actually rise beyond the form that we are in simply by understanding that I'm not this body. I'm not my mind. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my emotions. I'm not even my life story. Yes, I have all of that, and that shapes my human experience, and that's an experience I've come here to have. But that's not me. And the moment I shift the locus of identity from the ego to the soul, I'm able to now observe, I'm able to now direct the experience I'm having, instead of being controlled by the experience, by what people say, by what happens, by the weather, by circumstances, situations, by being in charge of who I really am as a spiritual being, as a soul. I'm able to gain a perspective that I could not have if I let that part of me stay dormant, if I simply stayed caught up in the mind and body in this organism. So that is the reason why we meditate. That is why we learn how to transcend the human experience. But it doesn't mean we deny the human experience. We learn to walk back and forth between that, how to have the best, wonderful, most wonderful human experience, while at the same time not being affected by the circumstances, the situations, the things people say, the things that happen in nature or in life, in any place at all. So we now come to a point where he's starting to talk about how there was a time where there was a huge devastation. And this begins at the time of Brahma. See, according to the Vedas, God doesn't personally create. He delegates. That's what all CEOs do, right? They don't do the work themselves. They delegate responsibility. And so the entire management of the universe, right from creation to the management of the different services, such as rain and water and sunshine, and everything is delegated out. To whom? To the devas, demigods. Who are they? Highly powerful beings. Beings just like you and I. They're not gods. They are demigods. They are having a very powerful role, just like the president of a country might be in a very powerful position. But he's a representative of the country. He's been given a position, and he needs to abide by that. So the devas, the demigods, are like that. Brahma is the leader of the demigods. He is the creator of the universe. During his day, the entire universe is created and continues to thrive, and that day lasts trillions of years, 4 trillion years. And then there is his night, another 12 hours, which is an equal amount of time. And you may say, oh, that's ridiculous. That's not possible. Oh, who can live for 4 trillion years in one day? Sure, in our understanding, that's impossible. That's ridiculous. That makes no sense. But ask an ant or a creature that lives only for a few hours or a day about some other creature, the human, who lives for 100 years. And that creature will tell you that's nonsense. You know, he'd measure his existence and say, well, you know, I live for a few years or a day. And I'm sure all other creatures live like that. It can't be any other way. Because we see everything and limit everything to our own limitations. But that doesn't necessarily have to be so. There are many different possibilities, and we need to keep our mind open to that. There are beings in other planets, in other universes, who live very different lifetime. And their time is very different than it is out here. Even Einstein talked about that. And scientists have been talking about that, how time in other planetary systems and other universes is very different than the way it is here. It's a big topic. I'm not going to get into it right now, but maybe one day I'll do a video on that too. So at the end of the previous millennium, during Brahma's night, the entire universe was annihilated and covered by the waters of the ocean. Now, we're not talking about just this ocean. We're talking about what is called the causal ocean. And as Brahma awoke, the Vedas were emanating from his mouth. The Vedas are the books of knowledge, the great wisdom that is to be passed on to civilizations for there to be spiritual advancement. At that time, the demon Hayagriva stole the Vedic knowledge. Who are these demons? Demons simply means beings who are averse to God, who have turned away from God. They don't have to be people with, or beings with some horns or some, crazy ghostly features or read something. No, not according to the Vedas. The Vedas, there are divine qualities a person has, and there are demonic qualities. It is about the qualities that a being has. Someone who is, for example, a psychopath, or who enjoys hurting other people, or who enjoys causing suffering to others, or who is more interested in their own self-interest than the self-interest of others, as we see sometimes even with great big business people and with big corporations. We see that they don't care about what happens to other people. And as a result of which, we could say they are demonic. Again, try to understand this is a rephrasing of that term and giving it a more real context. So anyway, the demon Hayagriva stole the Vedas. The Vedas were the spiritual books of knowledge. Vishnu then incarnated, the Supreme Being incarnated as a fish to kill the demon and save the Vedas. Now, why would he have to come as a fish? Well, we'll get into all that. In an earlier millennium, there lived a great king, Satyavrat, who was a great devotee of Vishnu. At times, he performed austerities by subsisting only on water. There's something to learn. Fasting, austerities help us grow spiritually. They are not about enjoying our senses. Most of our society now talks about how we can enjoy our senses, and that's the goal of life. Like, accumulate as much as you can, enjoy as much as you can, have a blast, have a great time, and that's the goal of human life. No, not according to the Vedas. They say if you want to advance spiritually, then perform austerities. What is an austerity? To do something that is difficult. Now, if you want to do anything in life, you have to do something that is difficult. If you want to advance in your job, if you want to grow a business, you've got to do something that is difficult. It's not easy. It doesn't happen by just sitting back and watching TV. It doesn't happen by not putting in the effort. You've got to take on difficult challenges. And sometimes you got to take on those challenges voluntarily. Fasting is one of those. Rising early in the morning is another. Eating simple vegetarian food is another. These are austerities. But that's another topic. Let's move on. So one day when the king was performing austerities in the river, a small fish appeared in the water in his palms. The king quickly threw the fish back in the water. Let me show you that scene here. there is the king holding the fish in the palm of his hands, and there again. So the fish then spoke and appeared to the king. He says, "My dear king, protector of the poor, why are you throwing me in the water of the river, where there are other aquatics who can kill me? I am very much afraid of them." The king, not knowing who this fish was, decided with great pleasure to give the fish protection by placing it in a water jug and bringing it to his palace. Oh, he seems to have found a novel fish that can talk now. That's so fascinating. I'll show it to my kids. I'll show my wife. Look at this incredible thing I found. In one night, that fish grew so much that he could not move his body comfortably in the water jug. So he expanded. The fish said, "Oh, my dear king, I do not like living in this water pot with such great difficulty. Therefore, please find some better reservoir of water where I can live comfortably." The king then threw the fish in a large well. But within a moment, the fish's body filled that too. So he expanded massively. And the fish then said, "My dear king, this reservoir of water is not fit for my happy residence either. Please give me a more extensive pool of water, for I have taken shelter of you." The king then had him thrown in a lake, but the body of the fish rapidly grew till he exceeded the water in the lake. The king at last had to throw him in the ocean. Think about what kind of effort it must have taken to carry that fish that had become the size of a lake and have him then transported to the ocean. I don't know how they managed it, but however they did, once the fish was thrown in the ocean, it began to expand there too. He says, "Oh hero, in this water there are very powerful and dangerous sharks that will eat me. Therefore you should not throw me in this place." After hearing these sweet words, King Satyavrat, being bewildered, asked the fish, "Who are you? You simply bewilder us. In one day you have expanded yourself for hundreds of miles, covering the water of the river and the ocean. I have never seen or heard of such an aquatic animal. You are certainly the inexhaustible supreme Godhead, Narayan, Vishnu. You have assumed the form of an aquatic to show your mercy to the living entities. You are the leader and destination of surrendered devotees. Therefore, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I wish to know the purpose for which you have assumed this form of a fish." Vishnu, the Supreme Being, had assumed the form of a fish at that time because the universe was about to be inundated. In order to benefit his devotee and enjoy his pastimes in the water of inundation, he said, "O king, on the 7th day from today, the 3 worlds, Bhu, Bhuva, Swaha, will all merge into the water of inundation. At that time, a large boat sent by me will appear before you." Now, you might find this very familiar. This is what happened to Noah as well. He was given advance notice that in 7 days, there was going to be a great flood. And in his case, he had to build an ark, and he had to then gather into that ark all the creatures and all the plants and place them there. Now, this is a very interesting parallel, and yet at the same time, you're going to find that there are differences. The differences might be, because there are different interpretations in different parts of the universe, and different stories and legends abound. But on the other hand, it's possible that there have been many such inundations, and that both things are correct simultaneously. That in the time of Satyavrat, it happened in this way, and in the time of Noah, it happened a different way. In fact, that's what is being found out now. There is something called the Bhavishya Purana, and it actually talks about Noah. It talks about how in the Vedas, written 5,000 years ago, 3000 BC, how there would be Noah, and there would be this ark that he would build. It's all there. It was all predicted. It all happened. But this incident we're talking about happened way before that. So he's talking about how the entire world, the entire universe, in fact, is going to be inundated and destroyed. He says, at that time, a large boat sent by me will appear before you. You shall collect all types of herbs and seeds and load them on that great boat. Then, accompanied by the 7 rishis, rishis means sages, the wise people, and surrounded by all kinds of living entities, you shall get aboard that boat. And without sadness, you shall easily travel with your companions in the ocean of inundation, the only illumination being the effulgence of the great rishis. See, saintly people, highly evolved souls, have a certain radiance. They have a certain aura. They have a certain magnetic energy that is a result of their awakening. When one awakens spiritually, the powers of the soul start to show up. They illuminate and touch everyone around us. And that was the case of these rishis as well. And these were very special sages, the Sapta rishis, the 7 rishis who are known to have brought the Vedic knowledge to the world. He says, then as the boat is tossed about by powerful winds, attach your vessel, your boat, to my horn. Now he was going to appear as a fish, and that fish was going to have a big horn like a unicorn. And you were going to attach the boat to the fish horn using the great serpent Vasuki. Quite fantastic, right, for all of us to understand, but keep an open mind. There is much to learn here. For I shall be present by your side, pulling the boat. I shall travel in the water of devastation until the night of Brahma's slumber is over. You will be thoroughly advised and favored by me, and because of your inquiries, everything about my glories, which are known as Parabrahma, will be manifest within your heart. In other words, while Vishnu is there as the fish Matsya, he will be communicating with the heart of the king, Satyavrat. And then he says, thus you will know everything about me. He will reveal everything about himself to the king during that time. Right now, he didn't want to do any of that because there was no time to be lost. But once they're in the boat, once all that is happening, then he would communicate. Vishnu in the form of the fish then disappeared, and King Satyavrat sat in meditation and waited for his reappearance. Of course, his people gathered all the things around and got ready. In a few days, gigantic clouds pouring incessant water swelled the ocean more and more. The ocean began to overflow onto the land and inundate the entire world. A boat then began coming towards the king, and he collected various herbs and creepers. Then, accompanied by saintly rishis, he got aboard the boat. So here are some pictures that depict this scene. As they all sat on the boat, and they began to meditate on Vishnu, and soon he appeared in the form of a large golden fish in the ocean of inundation. The fish had 1 horn and was gigantic. The king then anchored the boat to the fish's horn using the serpent Vasuki as a rope. He then prayed, by God's grace, those who have lost their self-knowledge since time immemorial, and who because of this ignorance are involved in a material conditional life full of miseries, obtain the chance to meet the Lord's devotee. I accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead as my supreme spiritual master. In hopes of becoming happy in this material world, the foolish conditioned soul performs karmic activities that result only in suffering. Is this true? Because this is something we need to question. He's saying, in hopes of becoming happy in this world, the foolish conditioned soul, that's us, we are conditioned, performs karmic activities. We do stuff. Why do we do what we do? Why do we work? Why do we have a family? Why do we have a house? Why do we have our possessions? Because we want to enjoy. But the process of getting all of this and the process of maintaining it and then the act of losing it in time, what does that cause in us? Suffering. We get a few moments of joy, no doubt. But for that joy, for that happiness, there is tremendous suffering. We have to work hard, day and night. We have to do many things we do not wish to do. We have to deal with many people who might be sometimes nice to us and sometimes mean. We have to deal with various circumstances in nature. Sometimes it's too hot, sometimes it's too cold. Sometimes there's a tornado, a typhoon. There's all kinds of things that happen in nature. And then, of course, there is our own body and mind. Our mind troubles us by chattering all the time. Our mind troubles us by judging and criticizing us. Our body sometimes goes through sickness, sometimes goes through aging, sometimes goes through all kinds of things. Tiredness, fatigue, hunger, thirst, so many different things. And we spend our entire life trying to put out these different fires. Sometimes there is a leak in your roof, and sometimes there is a, problem with your car, and sometimes there is a problem with the kids, and sometimes there's whatever. There's so many things we've got to deal with. We take that to be life. But here, he takes that as suffering. He says, we're struggling, we're suffering, and we don't even realize it. He says, by rendering service to the Supreme Godhead, one becomes free from such false desires for happiness. You see, we're trying to be happy with the external world. And that is something that has very little returns. Massive effort, very little return. On the other hand, when we awaken spiritually, we understand that the happiness we were looking for was not out there. It was inside us all along. And that happiness, when it is awakened within us, makes us naturally happy for no reason at all. Nothing needs to happen. Nothing can take it away. You see, it's a whole different kind of experience. Because that is the nature of the soul. Just like fire is hot and water is wet, the soul is Sat Chit Ananda, meaning it is eternal. It is full of bliss, right? Ananda. And it is wise. That is the nature of who we are. And when we awaken to our true nature, and when we connect with the source of everything, God, that which brought us here, and to who we wish to return, because we're looking for love, we're looking for happiness. Who is the source of that happiness and love? God. So and what is coming in the way between the two? One thing, desire. Desires are not bad. Desires are natural. It is natural for us to desire, except that we're looking in the wrong place. We're looking in the world for that which we desire. It's like looking all over your house for your keys, but the keys were in your pocket all along. Right? So you're looking, anxious, worried, stressed out. You got to go somewhere, but the keys, where are my keys? What has happened? Oh my God, so much stress. But they're in your pocket the entire time. You didn't look. Similarly, the happiness we're looking for, it is natural to desire happiness. It is natural to desire peace. It is natural to desire love. It is natural because it is who we are. It's not, and we cannot give it up. Some people say, no, you must give up desire. Oh, you must give up attachment. You can't give up attachment. That attachment was meant to be that we become attached to God. That is the original attachment. But we have to give up the false to get the real. We have to give up the illusion to wake up to the reality. We have to get out of the dream to come back into the world. A child needs to grow up from being a child and playing with dolls and come into the real world as an adult. In much the same way, we need to give up the false desires for happiness and come to the real desire of our spiritual nature. So then he says, may my supreme spiritual master or God cut the knot of false desires from the core of my heart. You see, to actually get rid of that false nature or this conditioned response that we have that comes so automatically is difficult, extremely difficult. And it takes a spiritual master. And who is the greatest spiritual master of all? The greatest guru of all is God. And so he says, he prays, please cut the knot of my false desires from the core of my heart, of my attachments, because you have the power, I don't. I'm weak, I'm small, I'm struggling. I don't know how to do these things, but you do. One who wants to be free of material entanglement should take to the service of the Supreme Being and give up both pious and impious activities that result in good and bad karma. This is another important learning here. A lot of religious people tell us that we need to be good, and that creates a tremendous amount of stress and strain upon us. We're trying to be good. And whether it's to our children or whether it's in ourselves, this attempt to be good often backfires. And then we feel guilty. And then we're told we're going to go to hell, and all this different fear-mongering that goes on. But he's saying very clearly here, give up both pious and impious activities that result in good and bad karma. Let's understand this a little more deeply. When you do something good, it results in good karma, and you do something bad that results in bad karma. But both good and bad karma bind you to this world. And through good karma, you might end up in better situations in your future lives, or even in this life. You might find yourself being born in a very wealthy family, or a very beautiful country, or have a wonderful body. All those are results of good karma. And then when that good karma is used up, gradually it all diminishes. The good looks go away through old age. The money gets spent. The wealth is frittered away. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that even if one goes to the highest planet, the place where there is the greatest opulence, the places where there is the most incredible, beautiful beings, in the place where they have the most wonderful life possibly imaginable, whether one goes to the highest planets or the lowest planets where there is greatest suffering, all of them are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death takes place. But one who comes to my abode, Krishna's abode, God's abode, never returns to this temporary and miserable world. So that's what he's talking about here. Help me give up both pious and impious activities, because both will bind me to this world. Help me give up both good and bad karma. Let me become free of all of that. And that's what Krishna promises in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, just surrender unto me, and I will free you from all karma. And I will give you liberation from this world. I promise you this. Many times people say, oh, Christ said that he died for our sins, and he's going to take away all our sins, and he's going to, But Krishna said that 3000 BC, before Christ. He was saying that because that is the way. Every guru in the Vedic system, going from thousands of years, has been saying the same thing. Because Krishna says it. Because the Supreme Being says it. Because he says, Sarva dharma parityajamam ekam sharanam braja. Give up all your duties, your responsibilities, and surrender unto me. Give up your religion. Give up everything. Surrender unto me. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo. I will remove all pap, all sinful residue, all bad karma from within you. Moksha ishamima shuchaha. And I shall give you moksha, or liberation. I shall free you from the cycle of birth and death, and I shall bring you back to me. So he says, this is the way of regaining one's original spiritual identity. See, when you get past the duality of good and bad, right and wrong, then you enter the realm of the non-dual. That is where your spiritual identity resides, your spiritual self. Your ego, your mind, is caught up in duality. How is it caught up? Because the mind, this machine here that we seem to be serving all the time, is constantly caught up in things being either good or bad, right or wrong, I like or dislike. This is what it does. It's positive and negative. But both positive and negative are products of the mind. We have to go beyond all of that, beyond the duality. And then we enter the realm of spirit. then we regain our original spiritual identity as soul. He says, just as a block of gold or silver sheds all dirt and becomes purified when treated with fire, may that inexhaustible supreme Godhead become our spiritual master, for he is the original spiritual master of all other spiritual masters. In other words, he is the one who can purify us, just as fire purifies gold and silver. Even something as solid as gold and silver get purified. Something as beautiful and precious as gold and silver get purified by fire. So he is that fire. Neither all the demigods, the devas, nor the so-called gurus, nor all other people, either independently or together, can offer mercy that equals even 1/10,000th of yours. Therefore, I wish to take shelter of your lotus feet. You see how he's so clear in his thinking, so clear, and his prayers are so beautiful. As a blind man being unable to see accepts another blind man as his leader, people who do not know the goal of life accept someone as a guru who is a rascal and a fool. This is happening all the time. We are following people. There are Instagram, wannabe leaders or influencers, as we call them. And there are all the different teachers who we come across through different books and so on and so forth. They do not know the goal of human life. They might teach you how to have a better personality. They might teach you how to have a better life. They might teach you how to manage your mind or your body or something else. But they do not know the goal of human life. If you ask them, what is the goal of human life? Well, I don't know, to be good, to be happy. But can you really be happy? Can you really be consistently happy for no reason at all? Do you know how to do that? It's not that you need a technique. It's not that you need a method. Your soul is by nature happy. So all you've got to do is remove the obstacles in the way, the anarthas as they're called, the impurities that are in your heart, that are in your mind. Remove those and the soul will shine through. He says, we are interested in self-realization. Therefore, we accept you, the Supreme Godhead, as our spiritual master, for you are able to see in all directions and are omniscient like the sun. A materialistic so-called guru instructs his materialistic disciples about economic development and sense gratification. This is so real right now. Every one of the so-called teachers that we come across this is what they're, how to get rich, how to make a lot of money, how to be able to do the marketing and do this and do that. And I'm not saying we don't need to do that. Of course you need to do that. And of course you will want to enjoy your senses. You're in this human experience. But we keep following these people thinking that this is what life is all about. But it's not. We need to know that there is a greater purpose to life, a higher goal. And then we can still manage these matters to some degree, but they will not be the goal of our life. That's what's important to understand. He says materialistic gurus instruct their disciples about economic development and sense gratification, but because of such instructions, the foolish disciples continue in the materialistic existence of ignorance. But you give knowledge that is eternal, and the intelligent person receiving such knowledge quickly revives his blissful spiritual nature. That's the whole point of the study of the Vedas, of the Bhagavad Gita, of the Bhagavatam. These texts tell us about this, tell us the pathway to get here, tell us how to be able to awaken that original blissful spiritual nature. You are the supreme well-wishing, dearmost friend of everyone, the controller, the supersoul, the supreme instructor, and the giver of supreme knowledge and fulfillment of all desires. See, understand this. Some people go to God, solve my problem, take care of my kids, fix my business, help me with this, help me with that. But he's saying, no, there's much more. It's like becoming the best friend of a very wealthy person. And then you just go and ask them, hey, can I have a couple bucks, man? I just need to go do this. Or I need $10, $20, whatever it is. This person could give you everything if you came to them without these ulterior motives, trying to use them for some of your problems. He says, you are the supreme well-wisher, the dearmost friend of everyone. God is the supreme well-wisher of everyone, the dearmost friend of everyone. It's not about some king sitting in the clouds who's trying to control and lord it over everybody, and if they don't do his orders, he's going to punish them. No. Best friend of everyone, who is seated within our heart, who is all around us and yet exists separately. The supreme instructor, he's there to guide us, and the giver of supreme knowledge and the fulfillment of all desires. So fulfillment of all desires doesn't mean that he gives us whatever we want. No. What we want, we don't know where to find it. He shows us where to find the real fulfillment of our desires, which is within ourselves and with him. Although you are within the heart, the foolish, because of material desires, cannot understand you. O Supreme Being, for self-realization I surrender unto you, who are the supreme controller of everything. By your instructions, I kindly cut the knot from the core of my heart and reveal the destination and purpose of my life. Anyway, so what is this really the scene that is going on? It's this. The boat, the fish Vasuki, he's praying to the Supreme Being who has appeared as that fish. Matsya. Vishnu appears in many different incarnations, and during the course of the Bhagavatam, we've been reading about those different incarnations. Different artists trying to portray this idea. If you've been listening, pause and look at the pictures. They're beautiful. Different artists have tried to convey Matsya. Vishnu, in his form of the fish, Matsya, then explained to the king and the rishis, the 7 rishis who he had brought along with him, the sages. He explained to them the absolute truth. He spoke the spiritual science of self-realization known as Sankhya Yoga, the science by which one distinguishes between matter and spirit. These instructions were all from the eternal Vedic literature. So, the science at which one distinguishes between matter and spirit. Think about this. People talk of spirit, but how do you know? What is spirit? What is the soul? What is spiritual energy? We know of this material world, but what is spirit? We cannot see it. We cannot hear it. How do we know it? And the answer is very simple. It's not complicated. Everything in this world, everything that you see around you here is made of energy. Scientists have proven that. But what is the nature of this energy? Take a moment and be out in nature. You will experience it. You won't experience it in your home because there nature has been taken and turned into tables and chairs and houses and walls. We've manipulated and twisted it around into the shapes we want, which is fine. But go out into nature as it was created by God. And there you will feel this energy. And you will experience feeling peaceful, although nothing has happened. But the key is for your mind to be quiet. But it will be a lot easier for your mind to be quiet when you're in nature. If you breathe deeply, and if you make yourself present to what is around you, you will easily enter into that state where there is no thought. And then you will experience that energy, which is the energy of God. God is all around you. God is the energy of the universe. But that's not all. It doesn't stop there. God is also present within us. So even if you weren't outside in nature, and if you were just sitting in meditation, and if you were in complete trance and you knew how to get there and quiet your mind, you would again be able to hear him from within you. And yet God exists as a being separate from all of this, and comes to this world from time to time. King Satyavrat was illuminated with all Vedic knowledge, and by the mercy of Vishnu, in present day time, he appeared as Vaivasvat Manu, the son of the sun god. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who pretended to be a gigantic fish, who restored the Vedic knowledge to Brahma when he awakened from sleep, and who also enlightened King Satyavrat and the great saintly persons. Anyone who hears this transcendental description of the Matsya incarnation will be delivered from the reactions of karmic, sinful life, and one who narrates it will certainly have all his ambitions fulfilled and will undoubtedly return home back to Godhead. So if there's any questions that you've got, please write them down. I'd love to answer any questions you might have. I'd love to know your thoughts. I'd love to know your own experiences, or if you're seeing this later on, the recordings are all on YouTube, by the way, and you'll find them there. I've got an entire channel, Spiritual Wisdom channel. You can type that in, or type Spiritual Actualization, either of those, or my name, Rohit Juneja, and you'll find the recordings of the entire Bhagavatam. It's over 50 episodes now. I don't know how many there are. And then you'll find a different playlist. There's a playlist on the Bhagavad Gita. There's a playlist on the Bhagavatam. There's a playlist on an entire course, in fact, on how to deal with your mind. I've called that Mind on a Leash, and how to quiet your mind. Because to me, that's the most fundamental way in which you can begin to hear that inner voice and you can begin to connect with the divine. So that's critical. A lot of people walk the spiritual path, but they never quite learn how to quiet their mind. Quieting your mind and having it under your control is the beginning of spiritual life. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, for one whose mind is under control, it will be the best of friends. And for one who has failed to control their mind, it will be the greatest enemy. We're living with our enemy if we don't have this mind trained to talk when we want it to talk, to do what we want it to do. If it's there sabotaging us, if it's there criticizing us, if it's there beating us down, then it's not doing what it's meant to do. It's there to advise us. It can give us opinions, just as an employee in our company, in our organization, might come there and say, hey, boss, this is what's happening. Sure. But you got to realize who's the boss. Is your mind the boss of you? Or are you the boss of your mind? That's a key distinction. So in my playlist called Mind on a Leash, you'll find a lot of input on how to be able to take back charge of your mind, how to be the boss of your mind, while at the same time giving it a place in which it can function, and the things it can do and what it cannot do. Where it usually goes wrong is in trying to interpret the world, in trying to tell you your worth, your value, or other people's worth and value, where it goes into judging. It is not in a position to do that. It does not know how to do that. It cannot read other people's minds. It cannot know what your worth and value is. Your worth and value is not dependent upon a particular act that you did or did not do. It is not dependent upon how much money you have and how much you don't. It is not dependent upon how smart you are or how stupid you are. It has nothing to do with it. Your worth is independent of all of these things. Your worth is intrinsic, not extrinsic. And intrinsic means it is based upon your soul, and your soul is priceless. Your soul is a particle of the divine. It is who you are. It is no different than God in that sense. But it is, so qualitatively, it is no different than God, but quantitatively, we are tiny. We cannot create universes. We can create our little world, but we can't create universes. We can't create species. We can't create all of that around us. Anyways, I'd love to have your thoughts, your opinions. I've been talking for too long now, and I'd love to know what you think. What are your ideas? What is your takeaway? Did you learn from this? What would you like to add to this? I really enjoy reading your comments. You can do it now live if you like, or on Instagram as well as on YouTube and on Facebook. Or you can, write later on. But do feel free to share with me your thoughts. Okay, so if there's nothing else, I'll see you next time. Hare Krishna. And for those of you that were there joining me, Please know that we do this live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern time. So, and if you're in India, then it's 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday. So for those of us in US, it is on Tuesday. If you're in India, it's on Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. And join me live. I had to do this today, which is a Monday, only because last Tuesday we had some major technical problems. Cameras blanked out and just a whole big mess it was. So I had to re-record the whole thing. But I'll be back again tomorrow, same time, for the next episode. That is, tomorrow will be Tuesday, and that'll be, again, same times I told you, 7 o'clock in the evening Pacific or 10 p.m. Eastern. Right? Okay, I think you got it. I look forward to seeing you guys again. Take care.